Good evening. I call to order the Murray City Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, September 5th, 2024. It is 6:31 p.m. Present this evening are Commissioners Lisa Milkevich, Pete Hristo, Ned Hacker, Jake Pearson, Michael Richards, and I am the chair, Maren Patterson. Excused tonight is Michael Henry. From staff, we have Zachary Smallwood, David Rogers, Ruth Ruock, Mark Richardson, and Phil Markham is here with us also. We like to welcome the public. Thank you for coming out to our meeting. We are always grateful to have you here and participating. Some etiquette items to review. We ask that you take a moment to please silence your cell phones. If you do need to take a call, we ask that you step out into the hallway. When the time comes to make a comment on an agenda item, we ask that you would come to this podium and speak into the microphone for the recording. We also ask that you state your name and address for the minutes. Once the item that you are here for is over, you are welcome to leave. We ask that you just do so quietly so that we can continue our meeting and our remaining items. If you're viewing this meeting online on the live stream, the only way to make a public comment is to email in to planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. If you post a comment on the Facebook Live or the YouTube, it will not be seen this evening. Okay, so we will start off with our business items. We have approval of minutes from our July 18th minutes and our August 1st minutes. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
And then were there any changes or things they needed to adjust? Other than, okay, than what we discussed in the pre-meeting. Is there an I'll entertain a motion to approve the July 18th and August 1st minutes.
Madam Chair, just so that the public listening knows, can we add that the changes suggested in the pre-meeting were all clerical, not content?
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make motion that we approve the July 18th and August 1 Planning Commission meetings as written with corrections that we discussed in our pre-meeting.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Agenda item number 2. Do any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest with any of the agenda items this evening?
No.
Neither do I. Item number 3, approval of findings of facts. We had none this meeting, so we will move on to our next item, which is agenda item number 4, amending conditions for the conditional use permit for Fiji Townhomes and Applegate condominiums. And we will have a report by Mark Richardson.
Thank you. So this is amending conditions of approval for the conditional use permit and subdivision approval for the Fuji Townhomes and Applegate subdivision. By way of background, back in June of 2023, the Planning Commission heard a request from Applegate for a proposed townhome project. As part of that project, they applied for subdivision approval and a conditional use permit. At the time, the Planning Commission approved the project subject to several conditions, including a condition that Applegate provide an emergency-only access gate that met fire department requirements at the Fuji connection to Spring Clover Lane. Spring Clover Drive. That condition is just kind of exactly what it sounds like, that where that roadway connected, they were required to put in a gate that was only allowed access by emergency personnel or vehicles. I want to point out and just clarify too that for the purpose of tonight's discussion, that condition is the only issue we're addressing here tonight. After the Planning Commission approval, Applegate appealed that decision to the hearing officer. The hearing officer reviewed that in September of 2023. At the time, the hearing officer determined that there was substantial evidence supporting the Planning Commission's determination, and they upheld the conditions. At that point, Applegate objected to that condition, and they requested an advisory opinion from the Office of the Property Rights Ombudsman. Just again, by way of background, the Office of the Property Rights Ombudsman is an independent, neutral office as part of the Utah Department of Commerce that will assist citizens and government agencies in clarifying and understanding property rights laws or resolving disputes. So when a party requests a advisory opinion from the ombudsman will gather the record from the Planning Commission and the hearing officer. They'll gather additional information that they have questions on from both parties. They will then make a review of the record. They'll do an analysis of the law, and they will provide a formal written legal analysis that indicates what their opinion of the issue is. While an advisory opinion from the ombudsman is just that, advisory, it's not binding. However, if a matter continues to litigation and a court ultimately makes a decision that is consistent with the ombudsman's opinion, the prevailing party can ask for and seek attorney's fees and costs from the losing party. So with that background on the ombudsman, in July of this year, the ombudsman's office issued their advisory opinion for this issue. After reviewing the record and the information provided by both parties, the ombudsman determined the city could not require an emergency access gate be installed as conditions of approval because the city code does not expressly require the gate and that the conditions weren't supported by substantial evidence in the record. So in the ombudsman's opinion, they indicated that the traffic impact study that was presented by Applegate's engineer specifically stated that the proposed development would have no significant impact on the existing traffic. The ombudsman pointed out that no evidence had been presented that the crash gate is necessary to address the impact of the proposed development, and determined that the conclusions of the traffic study were the only substantial evidence that they had to go on. So further went on to indicate that the other opinions that were provided at the time were speculation and conjecture. So based on that, they issued their advisory opinion. We're here tonight because we really have no mechanism to just remove a condition that the Planning Commission has approved. So we come back to the Planning Commission to address that one condition. So, as I said before, while the Ombudsman's opinion is considered advisory, the arguments included in the opinion would carry significant weight in any litigation proceeding. And we believe that that would likely weigh heavily in Applegate's favor based on the Ombudsman's review. So after a thorough review of the advisory opinion, as well as conversations with planning staff and city engineering staff, the city is recommending that the Planning Commission amend its approval from the June 15th, 2023 conditions and remove the conditions that relate to the requiring of the emergency-only access gate. And again, just point out that it's the city's position that all deadlines resulting from the approval of the original subdivision and conditional use permit would be based off of the official findings of facts from tonight's meeting. So again, based on the Ombudsman's review, as we've looked at that, we feel that it will carry significant weight, and that's why we're making this recommendation to remove those conditions. So, any questions?
No questions from the commissioners?
Okay.
No? Okay. All right. I will now open this meeting up for public comment regarding this item. If you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, we ask that you do so by coming to the podium and stating your name and address into the microphone for the record before your comment. Please try and keep your comment to 3 minutes. We will keep your comment timed. We also ask that you offer new information in your comments, and please do not rehash already stated concerns. After the public comment portion of this meeting is closed, we will address any questions or concerns with the staff. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment? You can come to the microphone.
My name is Ronald Dunn. I live at 5320 Majestic Village Circle. The Applegate expansion request has taken on a life of its own for 7 years or longer. What ultimately became a request to build more condos with only a second access on Glendon Way to the south of the LDS Stake Center has evolved into apartments for rent complete with a new undesirable entrance/exit utilizing Spring Clover Drive. This latest change avoided Murray City's usually developer-friendly Planning Department and Planning Commission's denial for this neighborhood-damaging exit/entrance. Instead, the latest developer has successfully utilized the legal power of an even more developer-friendly state agency without any public input for their quick and apparently non-appealable rubber stamp approval. 7 years ago, I sat in a meeting listening to the Applegate non-resident landlords whine that they required a rezoning because in case of a fire, they would not be allowed to rebuild. Their rezoning was approved, changing their status to high-density housing. We later learned that that was a lie. With this new rezoning, the Applegate HOA, still smarting from 3 expensive embezzlement scandals over the years, now enjoyed the opportunity to proceed with their long-term plan to generate serious revenue from selling their undeveloped green space for additional residences that have changed over the years from owner-occupied condos to apartment rentals. Are we looking at a smaller repeat of the Fireclay disaster? Thank you, Murray City government, especially the Planning Department and Commission, for the apparent failure to protect the interest of long-term, tax-paying, voting residents in the surrounding neighborhood, of which I am one. The Murray Journal reported that the former Planning Department director was fired but did not specify the cause. Was that job-related or something else? I am left to wonder if my former neighbors who have relocated to more desirable suburbs such as Draper, South Jordan, and Harriman were clairvoyant, as they aren't living here now to witness Murray's ongoing conversion from Tree City, USA to Apartment City, USA. Thank you.
Thank you. Please do not, that is inappropriate. Please do not applaud.
My name is Christine Dunn, 5320 Majestic Village Circle, Murray, Utah. I have several comments to make. I read how people feel, and I feel the exact same way as residents who have zero faith in the Murray City Planning Department. I live in this West Side neighborhood affected by the decision to put the road through Applegate into our neighborhood. I feel that we have been marginalized repeatedly by Murray City. I don't feel valued as a resident at all. That began about 7 years ago when there was a meeting to change the zoning of Applegate. That meeting began with an outright lie. We were first told that the zoning needed to be changed because if there was a fire in Applegate, they would not be able to rebuild. Someone in the audience with more knowledge than I have called out the lie, and they admitted at that time that that statement was incorrect, but the zoning still needed to be changed. At first, we were told they would build units to sell and keep the road as emergency access only. They required some things of that builder that made sense to make the area more livable. That builder now seems to be gone. Then a builder came that wants to build rentals. The road was still supposed to stay emergency access only, but the builder seems to have gone to a higher power, and now the road will come into our neighborhood, increasing traffic. I have a huge problem with the idea that you are allowing rentals to be built in the middle of an area where homes can be purchased. I realize that there are condos in Applegate that are rentals, and there are homes in my neighborhood that are rentals, but there are owners that have a larger stake in what happens in that area than those who just rent. If we must have building on the property, it should be things for sale. They may later be rented individually by the owners, but they should not be built from the start as rentals. It further damages our property values. These are some of the reasons I do not feel valued as a Murray citizen. A while back, we had a meeting with our representative, our council representative, and he informed us that 2 weeks prior to the meeting where we can make comment, they already have a meeting and pretty much make all the decisions, and then we come here and speak out, but you guys have pretty much already made up your minds. We were told that we needed to look on the website to be aware. You know, you're dealing with a lot of old people that are not as technologically savvy as the others, or people
You
that
have
just
30
have busy
seconds.
lives. You guys need to switch the order of the meetings, and you need to consider citizens.
Hi, my name's Carrie Kelsey. I live on 849 West Spring Clover Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have lived on Spring Clover Drive for 28 years, adjacent to the proposed through street. When my family and I chose this neighborhood, we were drawn to the quiet dead-end street, which provided a safe environment for us raising our kids. Over the years, we've made significant investments to improve our home and yard as we truly appreciate the tranquility of our community. We currently have 7 young grandchildren who play frequently in our front yard, and 2 of them are living with us now. I have concerns about the potential transformation of our quiet street into a thoroughfare due to the housing development. This change could lead to increased traffic, which might impact the safety and potentially lower the property values in our neighborhood. A gate for an emergency vehicles only would be a reasonable compromise that would minimize disruption, helping maintain the character of our community while still allowing for necessary access. Traffic is a significant issue with the potential increase in vehicles. How will the city maintain the added strain on roads, intersections, and traffic lights? Additionally, how does Murray City intend to address the increased demand on essential services such as power, water, and sewer systems? As we continue to see new housing developments in Murray, it often feels like preference is given to those projects over the needs and concerns of established neighborhoods. I urge the council to consider the voices of those who will be directly impacted by these changes. We completely oppose the through street. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this item?
Hi, my name is Ryan Wallace, and I represent Applegate LLC, law firm Curtin McConkie. The matter before you today is very narrow in scope. The objections are on a number of different things that are being presented regarding the Applegate development and history. The issue at stake regarding the emergency access gate is really the only thing that's being considered here and is based on the issue that has been dealt with in appeals and through litigation. Well, not directly to the court yet, and hopefully that's not where this goes, but through the decision of the Ombudsman opinion, which we support. There will be a gate further down on the road, so this is not a true through street. That was part of the initial plans that were presented and were approved. It's just that there's this emergency access gate on the back end that was additionally being required, and that's what was objected to because law does not support it. Every property has property rights associated with those properties. This road literally is stubbed to the Applegate property and was initially platted to be a through street. Over time, that eventually was abandoned, but it was clear that it was presented in a way where there's no cul-de-sac there, that this was meant to serve this property. And in order to deny that request, there has to be specific laws and regulations in place. Zoning laws themselves are a derogation of property rights. It takes property rights away from the owner to support the community. And the only way that we should allow that is if those zoning laws are narrowly tailored and specifically applied in accordance with the law. And in this instance, we don't believe it was. The Property Rights Ombudsman also did not believe it was, and for that reason, we ask for the deletion of those 2 conditions, the one on the subdivision plat approval and one on the conditional use approval, specifically condition 1O on the preliminary and final subdivision plat and 1I on the conditional use permit. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
We'll address all questions after.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, do you think Mr. Smallwood could put the map of the property up while we're talking about it? Thank
Sure.
you.
Any other comments for this agenda item?
I'm Dana Kinsel. I'm at 5304 Lucky Clover Lane. And I didn't prepare a speech. I just wanted to make sure my voice was heard, that I live right outside there, and I do see kids all the time that are on the road and playing and knowing the fact that we'll have more traffic. And I didn't understand because it sounded like he said there is going to be an emergency, but then I heard there isn't going to be an emergency gate. So I'm a little
We
unclear.
can address your questions after the public
Okay.
comment portion.
Anyways, I feel like I moved to Murray because I feel like people care. They care about our community there. It's different than other places I've lived. And I just hope that our voices are heard. I agree with everything that they've said, and that's all.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further comments, I'll close the public comment portion for this meeting and bring it back to, do you want to have Ms. Richardson?
I'll
answer
just,
some questions? Okay,
address, and I apologize, I didn't hear your name. Dana, okay. I'll address Dana's real quick, and Ryan's. There is a gate right here where I'm highlighting, where he mentioned there will be an access gate here still. It's just the one that the city required right here that is in, that's the one that we're discussing tonight.
Mr. Small, is this the appropriate time for me to ask you a question, or do you want me to wait? Okay, Madam Chair,
yeah.
can I ask you a question about that gate? So the gate, who would have access? I'm assuming just residents can access the gate, but on the backside, anyone who wants to can come in and out?
I would, typically, that's how it works. If somebody's going westbound, or I apologize, let me rephrase. If somebody is going eastbound, typically the gates usually just auto open. But if you're headed westbound on Fuji Avenue, then I think you would require some sort of access control or fob or something. But I don't know for certain. Again, I'm really new to this project. This was handled by Susan and Jared before me. I'm very, very new to this project.
But there's only one gate, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, on the plans, these were the plans that were presented to the Planning Commission. And at that time, we required the gate to be installed as a condition of approval. And so they haven't resubmitted plans showing that because they were going through the appeal process. So it never showed it, so.
Any other questions? Okay. If there are no further questions, I will call for a motion or
Discussion.
further discussion, yeah.
I don't know. Less is often more, but I can't help not saying we are residents, and I have voted yes on projects that I'm not very fond of, because my job here is to follow the law and make sure that we're respecting property values, and property owners' rights. So hating us from the get-go isn't quite fair. We should get to know each other a little bit better, so. All right, let's talk about the project.
Well, we're not discussing the project. We are only discussing these motions.
Item. So the only discussion is the legality around the gate. Because obviously we like the gate, we voted to have the gate, and the lawyers told us we can't vote that. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
It's a question for legal counsel.
Because the
Legally
city,
help us answer that
the
question.
city was concerned about traffic, the city wanted the gate, we voted for a gate, we want a gate, and legally we can't say that.
Correct. The condition was imposed by the Planning Commission, and through the appeal process, the ombudsman determined there wasn't substantial evidence to justify including that gate. So,
I want a gate.
Any other questions? There is the public comment portion for this agenda item is closed, so there is no comments from the audience. We will have discussion as a commission, or I will entertain a motion.
I'll make another comment. The ombudsman made the determination and heard from the applicant. The city's ordinances say that there is reasonable anticipated determination effect. And part of that for me is the mental stress and anguish that the residents have in this neighborhood that's been in place for about 50 years, if I do my calculations correct. So to have an open street now into that neighborhood, I think is a little disingenuous, as there is no connection on Murray City's master plan, transportation plan, connecting Applegate to Spring Clover Drive. So a little disingenuous in that regard. And I think this is a anticipated negative impact to a community that's been in place, has tight group community, and I think there can be other mitigation that the contractor can do to make this a little better on the community.
I mean, along those lines of thought, if it's a gated community, why are we so opposed to the gate on the backside? Not us, the people.
Please do not, I'm sorry, you can address your questions after the meeting.
She just can't hear me.
Okay. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Calling out from the audience is very hard for us as commissioners.
Because it's
So
not on the
you
public
could maybe
record.
raise your hand and say we cannot hear, but calling out is hard for us to run the meeting.
Part of the reason
Okay.
we ask that you speak on the mic so it's on the record. And if I couldn't hear me, I apologize. There's angst on all sides, and part of it is that you've stated you hate us. We voted against, we want this gate. We voted for this gate. We're making, and I just stated, if the builder wanted to build a gated community and put a gate where the first gate we talked about tonight, or the second gate, why are we so opposed to the backside gate? It's a little unclear, but legal processes have occurred, and it's been stated we were wrong. So.
Any other discussion? Or is there a motion?
I don't know what to do about that. Oh, okay. I think I would like there to be a little bit of discussion about this process, so the public understands. Jake,
You're calling on me?
you speak well.
I mean, I think what you've said is correct. I also, I mean, I feel for the residents. I have things going around, me that I don't love either. But, right here, we have a very narrow thing we're looking at. And, we haven't made up our minds before we come to these meetings. We do research stuff before we come to these meetings. But, the information presented here is what we're looking at, and I think this is a tough thing that we have to do. And, yeah, but I don't have anything else to discuss about the gate, really.
But we haven't said out loud, and I think what you're referring to, the thing we have to do, is we've been told 2 legal hoops were jumped through. It was determined we're wrong. If we vote against it again, us as a public will spend our tax dollars fighting and paying for their lawyer, when we've already been told in advance we'll lose.
I mean, I think legal counsel, I don't want to speak for them, but I think what they told us was they're pretty sure we're going to lose.
Right.
Not that we would 100%, but I think that,
So I'm torn between speaking my mind, I'm against this gate, I'm saying no, and we will all pay $1 million to fight it, or
yeah. And
saying, okay, I guess I have to.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Commissioner Milkevich, because this would cost the taxpayers money to do this, and the outcome will probably be the same.
And I don't know if it's $1 million, I just threw a number out there. We will all pay 50,000, I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I mean, I'm fine continuing to have conversation. I think we could do a motion too, if you wanted to, Chair, and we just see where we're at.
I'll entertain a motion.
I guess, okay. I guess I could ask the builder, why put a gate on the front for a gated community and then be upset about the gate in the back? But it doesn't matter. The outcome
It
is still.
doesn't matter.
I think they have made it clear their intentions by all the work they did to get to this point.
And money that they have spent fighting it this far. So,
Don't be mad at your city, be mad at your builders.
Is there a motion?
Chair, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the proposed amendment to the Applegate condominiums amended subdivision, removing condition 1O, provide emergency-only access gate meeting fire department requirements at Fuji connection to Spring Clover Drive.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Pearson and a second by Commissioner Hristo for the Planning Commission to approve the proposed amendment to the Applegate condominiums amended subdivision, removing condition 1O, provide emergency-only access gate meeting fire department requirements at Fuji connection to Spring Clover Drive. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote.
Yep. Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
No.
Commissioner Milkovich,
I had to say yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
No.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes.
Okay. The vote is 4-2.
All right, motion passes. Is there a motion on the conditional use permit?
Chair, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the proposed amendment to the Fuji Townhomes conditional use permit, removing condition 1I, provide emergency-only access gate meeting fire department requirements at Fuji connection to Spring Clover Drive.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Pearson and a second by Commissioner Hristo to move that the Planning Commission approve the proposed amendment to the Fuji Townhomes conditional use permit, removing condition 1I, provide emergency-only access gate meeting fire department requirements at Fuji connection to Spring Clover Drive. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote.
Okay. Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
No.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
No.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5, Erickson State Farm. Is the applicant, oh, she's not, well, a representative? Okay, we'll have you come up in just a moment. Thank you so much. We will have presentation by David Rogers first.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I'm sure this item looks familiar to many of you. This applicant actually came recently and was approved for a conditional use permit for a two-story office building in this location. But today we are looking for a conditional use permit for a one-story office in the R&B zone. So we have some information. It's a 0.36 acre site. And that is the current zoning of both the property and the surrounding areas. So for the building details, this is the site plan that has been proposed. It was originally a two-story building that has been revised from that down to a one-story building. It's 3,801 square feet. This proposal meets the required setbacks. With the R&B zone, for the height, the traditional standard is 20, but they can be up to 30 with Planning Commission approval, and they have requested 22 feet in height. And they meet all of the other setbacks and the parking requirements. This is the floor plan that shows what the building on the inside will look like. It consists of 2 entrances that have shared reception areas, tenant space, and restrooms. So these are the elevations that the applicant has provided for what the building will look like. The applicant also provided a narrative to describe the design and the style that they chose, which was included in the Planning Commission packet. And then, because we are in the residential neighborhood business district, there are design considerations. And so what the code states is that in order to meet the purposes of this chapter, the Planning Commission shall consider the following prior to approval of any plan. Where possible and appropriate, combine existing lots to provide sufficient area and space for new development, provide on-site improvements and appropriate buffering to adjacent properties and uses. The development shall have a residential character defined by appropriate density, massing, building materials, texture, style, and roof lines. Generally, roofs shall be of gable construction to provide a residential feel. Flat and mansard roofs will not be allowed in the zone except by conditional use approval. Applicants shall present building materials, colors, elevations, and buffering schemes for planning commission approval. Brightly or flashy colors will not be allowed on structures or signs. Color shades shall blend into the neighborhood and unify the development. Building materials shall either be similar to the materials in the neighborhood, or if dissimilar materials are being proposed, other characteristics such as scale and proportions, form, architecture detailing, color, and texture shall be utilized to ensure that enough similarity exists for the building to be compatible. Building materials shall not create excessive glare from glass, metal, or other reflective surfaces. Staff has sent 25 notices of the public meeting about this item to all property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. As of the date of the meeting, staff received one comment in favor of the proposal, which was included in your packets. So based on staff analysis of the conditional use application, the proposed use of the building is for insurance services, which is allowed as a permitted use in the R&B zoning district. With the conditions outlined in the staff report, the proposed use and property will comply with the standards of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance, and the proposed use is in harmony with the goals and objectives of the Murray City General Plan in this area. So based on all of that, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction of a new insurance office at the property located 313 East Winchester Street, subject to the following conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Was there not something in the code, I thought, that said something about the
Gable.
roof line? Or is that not in there? The roof line.
Gable
I didn't
roof.
see it.
It says gable.
Oh,
roof
it does say gable, okay.
right there.
Where, I must have,
C.
I think C.
Yeah, number C right there
C.
talks about the roofs.
roof shall be of gable construction. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That's the only question. Of course, there's more discussion. You mean jump in? Okay, so I like this applicant, I like this project, I think it's gonna be good for Murray, it's the right location. I am worried about the look. Because this zone, the intent is to be a buffer between commercial and residential, so we wanna honor that. And they did a wonderful job giving us a great packet with a lot of examples. Some of the examples are the ones that I would have given, but I don't feel like that roof line really is true to the intent of this area. I want to approve this project. It needs to be here. It'd be good for Murray, it could be good for the area. I'm just a little bit worried about the look of it. Anyone else? I appreciate they've provided materials, they've done their research, they're really trying.
Yeah, I mean, let's maybe have the applicant come up and then we can hear from them and we can have more discussion after the public comment.
My name is Mark Stoker. I live at 9487 South Willow Trail Way in South Jordan. I was asked by Mike and Monica to represent them here this evening as they are out of town with family. And so I'm here to represent them, knowing that this was approved as a two-story before in June. With the roof lines, all of that was considered at that time and passed in the consideration there. They have gone to great lengths to make it compatible with the area. It is buffered by the commercial district. You can see on the screen there that it's right next to the high-density commercial traffic area, and then the R&B zone, it's next to some residential there. Going to a single story, asking for the conditional use permit for the 2 feet. You can notice that it's not the raised ceilings, it is just that roof line of the elements that they're looking for the canopy that is requested for the conditional use permit on pursuing that request for approval. And I believe that Mike and Monica, they are professional, ethical, and they will be great contributors to the city of Murray, property taxpayers, being able to provide that additional funding to the city and to the schools as well. Are there any questions?
Before we have questions, you, as the representative, have been able to review the conditions of approval, and you will be able to comply with all 10 conditions.
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Go ahead. I have a question. So in the original plan, the roof line was visible from the street. And on this new plan, it looks like it will not, I mean, there's barely a slant, and it's facing the road, is that correct? So how would you even see that there's a slant on this roof? I mean, I think the slant was put there to maybe try to check off a box, but this does not look like a slanted roof from the side of this building.
And while
You're
we're,
looking at,
You're looking at a
You're looking at the
two-dimensional
same thing.
rendition of that, and I think that it's difficult to represent that. I can respect what your question is. I think it's standing there viewing that, you would see the bottom of that, and you would see the slanted roof going back away from the street in more of a three-dimensional representation.
and in all fairness, you weren't here at the previous meeting when we approved the two-story, and this was the exact same concern, and it's been a project that's haunted me since then, because I felt like they were trying, and it's a good applicant, a good project, but wasn't convinced it met the design requirements.
I was iffy on the last plan, and it was much more pronounced on the last plan compared to this one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pearson,
Yeah.
are you suggesting that it's more favorable with the one-story, or I'm not quite understanding the comment? Are you suggesting
The
it's more
old-
favorable now than it was before?
No,
when
I'm
it
saying
was
it's less
approved?
favorable now.
Less
The
favorable?
old design, you could really see the slant on the roof, and, you know, when I'm reading what we're supposed to be looking at, that's one of those things, that's why I brought it up, and now I'm not even sure you could see it, where before it was very visible.
By being two stories, you're saying it like made it more pronounced
Well,
that it
I
was.
think if you look at the side renderings of the old one, it was
If you look at
more
detail
pronounced.
3, I'm not sure if that's what's on your screen there. If you look at detail 3, I think it appropriately represents the slant. Detail 2 and detail 3 might give a better representation of the slant portion.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't honestly see a difference, or a huge difference between this one and the old one.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the roof. I think it fits with the area across the street. With respect, I disagree. I think it's fine. So,
And I respect that. We disagreed slightly last time, but I didn't voice it. But I have to say that we're not trying to match the business across the street. We're trying to blend with the residents behind it.
right, and I just don't think that there are residents behind it, but it's more associated with across the street when you're driving down that road.
But that's the reason for the R&B, like on the side of Wheeler Farm. Those few businesses look like houses because of the gable pitch, because they're intended to mix with the resident behind, not with the business in front.
Yeah, and I can see why
Yeah.
both perspectives are valid.
And this is really uncomfortable to me, because I feel like you could just fix it, and yes, you're good to go. Just make some more slopes, make it.
Yeah, I don't know that making it more sloped is going to really solve the concern here. It's just,
Well, I'm not a designer, so I don't need to offer
I-
design advice,
think-
but on the front.
I think we just, so, again, I know that we are not, when we're looking at the code, we're not having to check each of those items off, but a gabled roof is a roof with two sloping sides that meet at a ridge. Is that?
Right, but I could build a modern house with not a gabled roof that would be allowed in a neighborhood, and it could
I
be
completely
like a
agree with
lot
you, I'm
of-
just reading what it says here.
but weren't
right?
there homes behind it that also have a similar roof line?
Right, yeah.
And Mr.
There
Pearson, I
were, yes,
believe
we
it
have that in our
does-
packet.
Mr. Pearson, I believe it does on letter C also indicate flat and Mansford roofs can be exceptional or accepted as a conditional use.
As a conditional use, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yes, no, I agree.
those
And-
houses pictured there behind it have two modern-day slopes, modern design slopes to them, one over the house and one over the garage, whatever. And so they do have a gable look to them, even though they don't meet.
Staff does want to emphasize that in C, it does say generally roofs shall be of gable construction to provide a residential
I
feel.
agree. I just, this is my biggest concern. I thought I'd bring it up. Ultimately, last time, the reason why I approved it was because I think it's going to be a good project, and I wish it fit this a little better, but that was my concern. That's why I brought it up.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll have you sit down. Thank you so
Chairperson.
much. At this time, I will open this agenda item up for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, we ask that you come to the podium. Is there anyone that would like to come speak to this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion and bring it back for discussion or a motion.
I know our discussion's been splitting hairs a little bit, but I feel it's important for the public to hear us split hairs. Otherwise, they just assume we come in with a decision. So,
No, I agree with that, yeah.
I think this design fits into the R&B area, and Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to the Plan Commission approve conditional use permit to allow the construction of a new insurance office at the property located at 313 East Winchester Street, subject to the conditions 1 through 10 listed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Hacker and a second by Commissioner Richards to approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction of a new insurance office at the property located at 313 East Winchester, subject to the 10 conditions. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, we can take a vote.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
yes,
Commissioner Haristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson.
Yes. Motion is approved. Good luck with your project. Thank you for being here. Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 6, Olympus Tents and Events. Is the applicant here with us? Great. We'll have you come up in a minute.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioners. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit approval to allow an event reception business within the CD zone on the property located at 5963 South State Street. This is located in the same site that Modern Display recently went in, and as you can see from this, these are the boundaries that Olympic Tents and Events has. This is the surrounding zoning. It's mostly commercial with some residential to the rear. And these are the floor plans. So they intend to use 5,731 square feet of the area. They will not be using the whole site for the event center, just the area indicated in blue on their floor plan. For parking and access, the total parking based on the square footage they choose to use is 29 stalls. The entire site shows 429 stalls with 11 ADA stalls, and this site was reviewed extensively for parking when Modern Display went in to this site, so staff does not have any concerns about parking or access, and the access to the site is shown with the red circles. For landscaping, the Chapter 17.68 provides the requirements for landscaping on commercial properties. This site has approximately 200 feet along State Street, and the table below outlines the need and provided landscaping for this frontage. Within the interior of the site, parking areas are required to space with landscape islands such that every parking space is located within 75 feet of landscaping. Staff worked with the applicant to install all required landscaping when the site was redeveloped into Modern Display, and the landscaping requirements have been maintained, so staff has no concerns with the landscaping as is currently in place on the site. So 72 notices for the public hearing were sent out to property owners within 300 feet, and staff, just before this meeting, received an email public comment that I will read when we have the public comment period. So based on analysis of the conditional use permit application, this proposed use is for public assembly, which includes reception centers, and it's allowed in the CD zoning district subject to conditional use permit approval. With the conditions as outlined in the staff report, the proposed use and property will comply with the standards of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance, and staff has found that the proposed use is not contrary to the goals and objectives of the Murray City General Plan in this area. So based on everything that we've seen, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow an events and reception center at the property addressed 5963 South State Street, subject to the following conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, if we could have the applicant come forward.
Hi, my name is Aaron Terrell. I'm the owner of Olympus Tents and Events, and we've been a business here for just over a year now. We're just looking to better use our space to provide more services in your city.
Great. And have you had an opportunity to review the conditions?
Yes,
The six conditions, and you'll be able to comply with all of those?
yes,
Great. Is there any further information you'd like to give the commission about this project?
I don't think so.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I will open the public comment portion of the meeting for this agenda item. If there's anyone that would like to come and make a comment. Okay, seeing none, maybe we'll just read in our email.
Yes, so the email comes from Jenny McGinty, and it says, "I know there's a planning meeting tonight, and I haven't had time to send an email, and am unable to attend with family commitments. I live directly east behind the building. I've had concerns since they moved in with all the trailers and storage and other cement blocks, metal. It blocks my view of sunsets, sky, what little I have, and an eyesore from second floor windows. When Shopco was located there, it was quiet as there were no loading bays. It was loud when during construction. How much more will be stored on location outside? It's an eyesore to me. I know it doesn't affect other neighbors more north on the street, and I probably have no say. Usually decisions are already made before public meetings. What will construction and remodeling be like? The front parking is so many vans and trailers. Will it be an inviting space for events and receptions? How late will they go? Just a few thoughts in the very few minutes I have to send an email. Thank you."
Okay, have we received any other emails since? No, all right. Then I will close the public comment period. If you want to maybe address some of those questions from the email?
Yeah, no problem. So once the event center is operating, staff is under the impression that there will not be outside storage, that the use will be entirely self-contained within the building, and that there should not be any noise or complaints of that nature.
And I know they specifically called out operating hours, which we maybe kind of talked about. Can you talk about the CD zone hours of operation?
Yeah, the CD zone does not have any required hours of operation, so there's nothing in the code that they need to comply with.
Restrictions there, okay.
And just for laymen, that means that we can't impose hours either. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Whether we want to or not.
And if that commenter, I guess, is watching, to get an answer to her comment, if there are things that are being stored outside or that do seem like they shouldn't be, what is her recourse of what she could do?
Yeah, so any resident in Murray City is allowed to report a nuisance or a concern, and our code enforcement will go and check out the area and look into that concern and resolve any issues that have arisen.
Great, thank you so much. Did that cover, I feel like, mostly what they?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, great. Is there any further discussion about this project or a motion?
I guess it would be good to say, we brought up in the pre-meeting concerns about noise. And if there's noise problems in a residential area, they can be reported and acted upon at that time, right?
Yes, that's correct.
I think this is a good use for the commercial area here. And Madam Chairman, I make a motion that the Planning Commission approve conditional use permit to allow the Event and Recreation Center at the property address 5963 South State Street, subject to the 6 conditions that were originally on the screen.
Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Hacker and a second by Commissioner Richards to approve a conditional use permit to allow an events and reception center at the property address 5963 South State Street, subject to the 6 conditions. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, we can take a vote.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Haristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Chair Patterson.
Yes. Motion passes. Good luck with your new event center. All right, agenda item number 7, Rookery Auto Sales. Is the applicant here tonight? Okay, great. We'll have presentation from staff first and then we'll have you come up.
Awesome, thank you. I haven't talked very much tonight. My voice feels good. This is a request from Rookery Auto Sales to obtain a conditional use permit for auto sales business in the MG zone. It's located at 4205 South Commerce Drive. All these properties located along here are all owned by the same owner, but it is specifically for this building. It's a combination of tow yards. There are a couple other auto sales businesses located in that as well. It is in the MG zone, and auto sales is allowed through a conditional use permit review by the Planning Commission. So here is a site plan of the area. You can see the numbered parking spaces. They do have reserved for, I believe it's 18, 19, and 20, I think is what was in the staff report, or 19, 20, 21. It's one of those two, I can't remember. And then they have customer parking towards the back there. So we are recommending that the stalls that are indicated as for them for display vehicles. You can see here is the Unit 2, which is the size of their unit. They have about 192 square feet of office space. And the code for parking is one space for every 250 square feet of office space. So that would require one parking space there as well. So let's see. And I apologize. They have 18, 19, 20, and 21. So it was both things. I apologize. So they do have the one required off-street parking space and then 3 display areas, and then customer parking is shared among the users of that area. The one main concern here is a property owner concern, which is the landscaping at this location. We are requiring that the property owner install landscape improvements. You'll remember we heard an application by Legacy Towing a number of months ago. They are required to install landscaping on the other side. So both of these together should make for a nicer project, nicer street frontage overall. We are requiring 8 trees, 14 5-gallon shrubs and 27 1-gallon shrubs. And as a condition of approval, we've stated that the property owner needs to work with Murray City staff to install that landscaping. So findings are shown here, that we believe the proposed use for an auto sales business is allowed in the MG zone. The conditions is outlined in the staff report. The proposed use and property will comply with the standards of Murray City, and the proposed use is not contrary to the goals and objectives of the general plan. We sent 15 notices of the public meeting. We did receive 1 email in support of the project. They were next door. There wasn't, they just sent in that they were in support of the project. So we are recommending that the Planning Commission approve the auto sales business at 4205 South Commerce Drive, Unit Number 2, subject to the 6 conditions listed on your screen. Any questions I can answer?
Zach, can you just remind us the process of getting a conditional use permit, but having the landscaping done? What's the recourse, I guess, if the landscaping doesn't get installed?
Yeah, so typically we require that before the business license is issued, or at least they have a plan going forward. And then there is the opportunity for them to bond for that landscaping, especially like a deferral agreement is technically what it's called. They will pay into it, especially as we're starting to get out of the summer and spring season. A lot of times we'll get these deferral agreements, and then if they don't install it, we have the cash to actually go and install it for them.
So they need to work with the property owner to
Correct.
get the landscaping installed before they'll be issued a business license.
At least a plan for it to be done.
Okay,
Yes, and then what would happen is we would recheck that at business license renewal.
okay.
And then if for some reason, if this business doesn't renew their business license for whatever reason, any new business is subject to these same conditions. And it would be reviewed at that time again.
And in the past, sometimes these car sale only applications, we have included a condition about no mechanics, no painting, no anything like that. Do you feel like that would be appropriate for this application, or that is not considered?
I don't think it's appropriate for this one because there's no space for it. This is pure, that whole building is purely office space. They have nowhere to even operate on
Okay.
vehicles.
Great.
Yep, it would have been something on there, for sure.
Any other questions?
But that kind of answers my questions too. In the past, we've required that all cars be inside the facility, but there is no inside for the cars in this facility, and that's why there's 3 parking spots outside. Again, we're kind of splitting hairs, but for the public to know we read this and think about it. Parking there, the map they provided us says there's 25 parking spots. And I went out there and looked at it, it's slim. And then their lease agreement says there's 5 parking spots available for each business, and there's 10 businesses. If my math's right, that's 50 parking spots, and there's only 25. Maybe that's why they're double parked everywhere. Parking might be a little bit of a concern for the tenants.
Yeah, and I think, and I apologize, but I may have wrote incorrectly. It's not necessarily that every one of them has 5.
Just this.
This one specifically would be reserved for that, for
Okay,
the
I might
4
have
for sure.
misunderstood.
Yeah. I believe the last one we reviewed back in 2021, I think, at this location, I think they had reserved like 3. And so we placed a condition that they could only have like 2 display vehicle spots or something like that.
And the reason I say it's splitting hairs is it's not a residential area. I don't think anybody's gonna be counting or complaining. It's very industrial, so.
Very industrial area.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we could have the applicant come forward. The applicant, if you could come forward. And state your name and address for the record.
What address?
It can be your business address or your personal address.
My name is Julio Aguayo. We're from 4,205 South Commerce Drive, Unit 2. And what?
And who's with you?
And he's my dad.
And
Julio Solis. My name is Julio Cesar Solis, and we try open the business with me and my son, and he is part of the business.
Great. And you've had a chance to review the conditions,
Yes,
Yeah.
we've seen the conditions.
and you'll be able to comply with those?
Sí.
You agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the commission about your business?
That it's in auto sales.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll open the meeting for public comment for this agenda item, if there's anyone that would like to come speak to this item. Do we get any emails?
Sorry, give me 1 second. I will, my phone's being dumb. No, we have not received.
Okay, then I will close the public comment period and bring it back for discussion or a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow an auto sale business at the property addressed 4205 South Commerce Drive, Unit Number 2, subject to the conditions set forth below.
Is there a second?
I could second.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Hersto and a second by Commissioner Malkovich to approve the conditional use permit to allow an auto sales business at the property addressed 4205 South Commerce Drive, Unit Number 2, subject to the 6 conditions. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, we can take a vote.
Awesome. Commissioner Haristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes. So motion is approved. Good luck with your business. Thank you for coming tonight. All right. Next item, agenda item number 8, the NOAA/Stacks is the applicant. Great, they're ready. Okay, first we'll have a presentation from staff.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, this is a design review for a mixed-use project known as the NOAA/Stacks. at the properties 149, 155 through 157, and 163 East Vine Street. It's just north of the Vine, if you guys know where that is. It's these three properties located here. It's also just, did I say east of the Vine?
You said
of the-
north.
Okay, I
Yeah,
apologize.
you got it right.
And then east of Home 2 Suites. It is in the MCCD zone, which requires design review approval for pretty much any new structure or redevelopment in the zone. So this is the existing kind of Alta survey. So the existing homes here. So this is the outline of the proposed area. I realize now that was kind of redundant and that was the exact same pictures that I just showed a minute ago. So this is the proposed site plan. You can see the outline of the structure, the proposed NOAA building here, and then also some surface parking spaces along the east side of the property. Everything in green is open space. They are meeting their open space requirements. So I'll kind of go through some of the project here. So they do have a good mix of brick and stucco and architectural design here. I apologize, I'm just kind of all wonky now with this one. So there are no, the only setbacks in the MCCD zone is that it's between 12 and 25 feet from the back of curb. So as you can see here, that would be right up to, I'm just going to zoom back out. It's up to this property line. So they are going to be at a functional zero setback. That is allowed. The 12 feet allows for the MCCD improvements, which is 7-foot sidewalks and 5-foot park strips. You can see here that what we have traditionally done with like the Vine is since Home 2 Suites has kind of started a pattern along Vine Street, we're continuing that pattern. The Vine has the same treatment as this, so we're looking at tree wells and kind of more urban environment in that. So tree wells along here as well. So we're just continuing that down Vine Street. So it'll start to look a little more cohesive with the street treatments as these continue to go forward. Let's see, new developments must be designed to have 50% of the building facade be within 12 to 18 feet of the back of curb. It's literally almost all right at the back of curb, so it does meet that requirement. I believe I saw 75%, and then it increases up to 87% later. Public improvements and street character. This was something that was addressed in the MCCD review. Curbside management plans. So we required that they provide a loading and unloading parking spot. And I apologize, I keep going back to this picture. It was discussed using one of these as loading, unloading only. Additionally, we do have a condition to sign all the surface parking lots for commercial users and guests. That was something that we felt is important. The people that live in this area should be parking within the parking structure. We're noticing with the Vine, the parking for the commercial was put into the structure. And then they now have a garage door, so it's hard for somebody to actually get in to park for that. So I believe using, they're providing a little bit of extra surface parking is good, at least in the interim, until this further develops as more of a walkable neighborhood and less reliant on vehicle traffic. Public right-of-way improvements, I just talked about that. Building design, scaling, and density. So primary entrances is located, their primary entrance is located right here, right facing onto Vine Street. They do have a secondary access to the east side of the property. They are required to have a commercial component because they are on a principal street, which is Vine Street. So how we measure that is the width of the building for a depth of 40 feet back. which required a total of, I apologize, 2,660 square feet of commercial space, and they're providing 2,846. They have 1,800 on the ground floor, and then they are proposing on this second floor right here, a little office space of 1,000 square feet as well. All right, residential density, so in this area, they, in the MCCD, they're allowed to go up to 80 units per acre. With the proposed 40 units on 0.55 acres, that equates to approximately 73 units per acre, so they are meeting the code there. Additionally, they're allowed building heights. I apologize, I didn't write in here what it is, but I believe it's up to 10 stories is they're allowed to go. They're only proposing 7 at 87 feet. So parking is based on the number of bedrooms that the dwelling has. This is actually a change. We have not seen a project since the zoning code has changed with these parking requirements in the MCCD. The Vine was approved under an old zoning ordinance that only allowed one parking space per unit. This one has changed. So they have a mix of 2 and 1 bedroom units. So 2 bedrooms are required at 1.5 spaces per unit. So 59 are required for the 39, and then they show one bedroom unit, which would be required at 1 space. So, and then with the commercial, it's 1 space for every 500 square feet, which requires 5. So they are required to have 65, and they are providing 65. Open space and landscaping. As you can see here, they're adding quite a bit of landscaping compared to the original proposal. You guys hadn't seen the original proposal, but it included a second building at about 5 stories tall where this parking lot was. They have added significant landscaping here on the east side, also some amenity space in the back, a putting green, and then also, I believe, like a dog park type thing in the back there as well. Building materials and colors, I kind of reviewed it quickly, but we do encourage the use of brick and traditional materials. We really like that they have used a significant amount of brick, and the banding around the top of the building is very, very nice. It's not just a completely flat roof. You actually have some texture there as well. So the MCCD Review Committee heard this item in July 25th. They reviewed it, and I kind of went over what they discussed with the, I apologize, like the parking elements, and they have been able to meet all those conditions. I will say this applicant has been very receptive. I've taken this through numerous. You know how we usually send these plans to the various departments. I've sent it through about 3 times, and each time they've revised their plans and updated. Even the plans that you guys are seeing now, I sent that to them on, I think, Thursday of last week, and they've already responded to each of those items with how they're going to address each item that's listed in these each of these elements. So, and I apologize, I've just been going off what the staff report has. Here's some elevations of the property. Like I said, it's a mixed-use project. Parking in here is actually quite interesting for the public that's here. It's a stacked parking product. So what you do is you park into one of these, you go into one of these little bays here, and then it's kind of like a sliding puzzle, if you can imagine that. So it actually will rotate it around to maintain an open spot at all times. It's pretty great. It's pretty cool, pretty innovative, something not done in Murray City to this point. So yeah, it's a very interesting concept. Second and third floors are largely residential, except for that little office space I mentioned. They did show on the third floor a fitness room facing out on Divine. Fourth and fifth floors, almost entirely residential, except for a little yoga studio open area. Sixth is all residential, and then the seventh floor, which would, the west-facing ones would be residential, but the east side is all kind of a social room, game room, and an open patio area. So it's pretty nice project, in my opinion. So findings here, the proposed mixed-use building is allowed in the MCCD zone, subject to design review by the MCCD Review Committee and Planning Commission. So with the conditions we've outlined in the staff report, the proposed development will comply with the standards of Murray City Land Use Ordinance. We believe it is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the Murray City General Plan to provide for additional opportunities at a variety of appropriate mixed-use development in the area. And then also the Murray City Center District Committee forwarded a recommendation of approval for the proposed project. We sent out 86 notices of the public meeting to all properties within 500 feet. 2 emails regarding the project were included as attachments to your report, and I have not received any comments since then. So I guess that's where I was just going to stop. We are recommending approval of the project, subject to the 8 conditions as shown. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, no questions? All right. Then if we could have the applicant come forward. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon.
Could you state your name and
Oh,
address? for the-
Adrian Brewer, 13958 Newburgh Drive. That's Harriman, Utah.
Great. And have you been able to review the conditions?
Yes,
And you'll be able to comply with those?
yes.
Great. Is there any additional information you'd like to give the commission?
No, he did pretty dang good. He should be
Covered a
our
lot.
pitch- He should be pitching for us, so.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. Then we
thank
will,
I might,
Oh,
yeah, I might.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm skipping ahead. Questions for the applicant?
Oh, you go for it.
Last time we talked with you, I think, I might be wrong here,
Different
you
developer.
talked about your car
The garage.
mechanism.
The garage?
Yes, and wondering, I thought I remember that there were some questions of little glitches or something with that, and if those are still, if I remember that correctly, or if
They have
the
fail-safes.
developer has helped
Yeah.
you out and gotten some better product, or,
And Commissioner Hacker, can I piggyback your question, because it's very similar, almost the exact same?
no, you can't.
Okay, I'll wait my turn. I'll wait my turn. I also remember the last time this item was brought to us, I think it was a different developer at the time, but I had concerns with safety with the car stacking mechanism, and at that point, I mentioned my kids, because I know I'd get out, and my youngest would run back to get her backpack and get stuck in the conveyor, and right? But they said there was safety mechanisms at that point, so could you speak to the safety mechanisms?
So, yeah, I don't actually have those safety mechanisms on me, but for instance, if we have a fail-safe, we do have battery backups that are gonna be secured there, so we can still use that and get people in and out. I know that we also have fail-safes of the doors closing as well, like, there's some, fail-safe there for them to stop the door and get it open, and for somebody inside to open the door if they get it stuck, okay? Which is close to the back. Yeah, each actual station will come with its own EV charger and everything else, and they have little controls there on those stations that they can get in and out with.
See that, safety, we really can't approve or disapprove based on whether I like your garage system or not, but safety is good to talk about.
Yes.
I mean, I think the system's cool, maybe not for kids. So I say that because there are some facilities that are 55 plus, and is this intended for children? And you're mentioning the door mechanism sounds to me like a garage door. If a child runs under it, it opens back up. But being able to open it from the inside also worries me, because then I can see my 4-year-old running back to get her backpack, it closing, she's up in the stacking unit, and she decides to open it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, we also have I did read up on this, that we also have a key that you get with that, right? It's not you just go up there and it will open for you, but you have this key, and as you approach, it will start moving the cars and do all that thing for you, as well as not close until that key or that fob is starting to walk away. So I know that they have those as well, input into this system. I would love to get you guys all of it, that information, if you would love to read over it.
And Commissioner Hacker, since I piggybacked your question, do you feel like your question was answered?
I think so.
Is there another place in the surrounding area that has a garage like that?
There is one close downtown Salt Lake, and I can't remember the actual name of the structure, but yes, there is one downtown.
Paper box lofts.
Paper Box Lofts, there it is.
And is it adult living only, or is it family living?
It's apartments, so it's just, I think they have, studio 1 and 2, bedroom apartments there.
And then I just had a curiosity question. I really like the design. It all looks awesome to me. Curious where you got the inspiration for kind of the aesthetics of the outside.
Do you want me to pull him up here, the one that created that design? To ask him?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
it's
Yeah.
Greg. He's our designer over here, so,
You don't have to come up. I just was
Okay.
curious. It's beautiful.
yeah, he does
Can we pull
immaculate
those
work.
pictures up on the screen?
Well, and I'd like to hear from him as well, because I think it was suggested that you guys have spent some time talking to the neighbors in the neighborhood and what the community would
Yeah.
like. And so if that's what you've done, it'd be nice to hear.
Yeah, we have actually spent quite a few days walking around to the neighborhood, hearing things for this and against it, and trying to meet the community standards for this structure. You know, one of them was that we had that double structure, that other 5-story. It just looked really dense and tight, so that's one of the things that we removed through that process. So, as for design, I don't think he came up with the design through the community. Okay, I think he's just a brilliant man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. You guys don't mind? This is our architect, and he could answer that. I'll let him introduce himself.
Kim Anderson, 1144 Chevy Chase Drive. Greg did most of the design, but we tried to, the thing that we looked at to start off with is we wanted to follow the look of the Murray Theater, and that's why we went with the rounded front on that. We wanted to pull that in. We're only a half a block away from the Murray Theater, so we really wanted that to happen. And during the first MCCD review that we had on the other project, the citizens had a bunch of input. We took a lot of those things into account and made some changes. And the MCCD going back, they liked what they saw, and we've appreciated their input. So anyway, that was the impetus of the design, trying to follow the Murray City Theater, and Greg did the rest of the design. He's great at what he does.
It's awesome. Looks great. Like it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, we would like to open up the public comment portion of the meeting regarding this item. Just as a reminder, if you would like to make a public comment, we ask you come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, and that you only state new information and not restating comments that have already been made.
Linda Fox, 4928 Southwest Street. I have a problem with this because Murray keeps saying they're historic, they're an older city, they're doing stuff, and everything you build anymore is too big, it's overpowering, just like the Vine. None of those businesses are filled, and it's like, why do you keep building these when nobody goes into the buildings? And I'm glad you think it matches the Murray Theater, but the Murray Theater has a problem because there's no parking. So again, you've got the stacking unit you're talking about, but there's not enough parking to sustain the businesses, and most homes have 2 cars. So I just don't understand why we keep calling it historic Murray when you destroy all the historic stuff. It's supposed to be a little residential family community, and you guys keep building these giant buildings that don't fit with the plan at all. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, yes, I'm Daniel Parsons. I live on 4845 South Center Street. Just kind of echoing on her previous comments, I have been born and raised in this neighborhood, and quite frankly, I'm disappointed to see yet another that's looking to be 7-story apartment complex being built in my neighborhood yet again. It's quite frankly disheartening because, like the previous person before me, she said we are trying to keep this community historic. And I may be young, but that doesn't really look historic in my opinion. And it is quite frankly just annoying to see my neighborhood just turn into a apartment complex funpalooza. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Wendy Parsons Baker. I live at 190 East, 5600 South. I've grown up in Murray. I was born here, raised my kids here. I have property on 48 that I have. And I'm really opposed to this. It was too bad that we ended up with the horrible thing on Vine that we've all hated. And now we're wanting to put in another big 7-story building. Now, the Home 2 Suites is a 4-story building. That was kind of bad enough, but to put this right next to that, it's going to dwarf all that. And we're right next to residential neighborhoods, and I don't think there's anybody that is going to be for this. I think it's a terrible thing that we're doing in Murray, taking out all of our history and putting in new, whether it's residential or apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Did we receive any email comments? Okay. Seeing no further comments, I'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the commission for discussion or a motion.
I have a question for Zach. Aren't these going to be for owned units, not rental units?
So I
For
believe
sale units?
the intention is to come back and do a subdivision, a condominium subdivision in the future. But right now, that's entirely up to the applicant. They can do either or. Yeah, so we can't unfortunately require them to be for sale units.
Right.
But that is their intention from what I believe. And the reason why you're not seeing that tonight is condominiums are very difficult to design. Because if you get one wall wrong, even by, a couple inches, that messes up all the property lines. So they do that after.
And I see the applicant waving his hand and wanting to state what they're going to do with it. And I respect that, and they can, but if the chair says they can. But we can't enforce it. So usually we don't
Correct.
ask them if they're going to sell or rent because we can't enforce it. They can change their mind tomorrow.
They can, and that's why I say their intention. But that's what I know.
Yeah, the reason I raised the question is in the package.
Yeah.
Right? It talks about, it's consistent with that being inclusive, in the inclusive, right, discussion, that they're to be for sale units. So I didn't understand are they rentals or are they for sale?
Yeah,
units?
and I apologize. Yeah, their intention is for them to be for sale.
And we can have the applicant come forward and maybe address some of the public comments.
Our intention is to bring Murray citizens, our residents to this city. So we have a for sale unit, that is what we're planning on. We have no thoughts even towards an apartment complex.
As part of this development, as part of this project?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, we
Right.
won't, we don't anticipate doing a percentage of apartments. We want to sell every single unit.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And I don't know, were there other public comments that,
Height, it's always,
oh, the height,
The-
anything that you wanted
I
to
don't-
address?
Yeah,
No, I think the one last thing I do want to bring up is the name. You know, one thing that we also did while we were walking around through the community is asking what they would recommend for a name, and started getting a few things. So we are going to be changing the name from the NOAA to the Stacks, to resemble the Murray Stacks that you guys had. Okay,
Good to know.
thank you.
Thank you.
the one comment I will mention, that, somebody had mentioned the vine and it not being filled. I believe the property just opened, I believe, just this spring. And we actually do have, a tenant going into the bottom of one of those.
Commercial,
Yeah.
good to know.
since I'm oversharing, I want to overshare again. It's the theme of the night, right? So height, there's a whole lot to height. I'm not sure I want it this tall, but it's not I don't have the leisure of choosing what I want here. I have to follow the ordinance, and the zone allows for it. So my vote has to be in accordance with the zone, not what I prefer. Having said that, also, in this day and age, it's hard to get developers in if you don't give them enough profit. So, there you go. Anyone else?
Any other discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, that the Planning Commission approve the design review application for the NOAA located at 149, 155 through 157, 163 East Vine Street, subject to the following 8 conditions.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Richards and a second by Commissioner Malkovich to approve the design review application for the NOAA located at 149, 155 through 157, 163 East Vine Street, subject to the 8 conditions. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, we'll call for a vote.
Perfect. Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Malkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Haristo,
Yes,
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, and good luck with your project. All right, our final agenda item, numbers 8 and 9, zone, map, and general plan amendments for Lotus Development. Is the applicant here? Okay, great. First, we'll have a presentation from Zach.
Perfect. I don't mean to correct you, but it's agenda item 9 and 10.
What did I say, 8 and 9?
8, 9.
Sorry, 9 and 10. I knew
So-
it was 2. and
Yeah,
then I
yeah,
got-
it's okay, it's all right. Yeah, this is a request from Lotus Development for a future land use map and zoning map amendment for the properties, 787 and 825 through 865 East, 4800 South. It's twice in one meeting that I have a range of addresses, so. This is just located on the west side of 4800 South as it makes its way connecting to Van Winkle Expressway. It consists of one property that is general office and, which is located in the blue, and another property that is a single-family dwelling that Lotus owns currently. Future land use of the site is for office and for low-density residential. The request is to amend that up to higher-density residential. So low-density residential is designation for, A1, R112, up to R210. It's the most common pattern of single-family development in the city. And then office allows for a wider range of office uses in environments that are compatible with adjacent residential neighborhoods. includes the GO zone and the RNB zoning district as well. They're proposing the higher density residential future land use designation. This does allow for a mix of housing types, primarily multi-dwelling structures. Single dwelling types may be mixed in, but at a denser scale. This allows the zones for RM20 and RM25. And they are seeking an RM25 on this zone, which would be a base density of 22 units per acre. So some of the allowances here, so GO, residential is not allowed except for assisted and retirement facilities. Height is 30 feet when within 100 feet of a residential zone, but it could increase. Front yard setback 20 feet, no rear yard setback unless it's next to residential, and then I believe it's 20 feet. Side yard setbacks 10 feet on either side, the corner is 20 feet, and then parking is between 4 and 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of commercial space. The one property of R18 requires a minimum of 8,000 square feet per lot, can build up to 35 feet, and then pretty standard setbacks. Almost all of our residential zones have front and rear of 25 feet and side yards of a minimum of 8 and a total of to equate 20 on both sides. Corner side setback is 20 feet, and then 2 off-street parking spaces for the R18. And in the RM25, which I apologize, I didn't change that in the slide here, but should be RM25, is 2.5 off-street spaces per unit. So general plan provides flexibility in its implementation and execution of the goals and policies based on individual circumstances. Amending the future land use map of the general plan will allow for cohesion with neighboring residential uses. And the proposed zone map amendment from R18 and GO to RM25 has been considered based on the characteristics of the site and surrounding area. And staff believes the potential impacts of the change can be managed within the densities and uses allowed by the proposed zone change. And I will say, like I've kind of mentioned in a previous application, that this has been looked at by various city staff. So you have engineering, water, sewer, power, all the utility companies, and notices went out to the school districts, and we have not received any comments regarding those for this project specifically. We sent out 87 notices of the public hearing to all property owners within 400 feet of the property and affected entities, and we have not received any comments up until this evening, which I have, I believe, 2 emails to read during the comment portion. So we are recommending that the commission make a recommendation for both the general plan amendment and the zoning map amendment. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Zach, the property that is, I think R18, that doesn't look like it's owned by them, that this will surround,
Mm-hmm.
is that a house?
Yes.
That's what I thought. And RM10, if I'm reading the colors right, is RM10 to the,
Yes, this is RM10 over here. And I believe this is RM15. No, this is also RM10. RM15 is the top here.
oh, okay,
Where?
thank you.
Along the freeway, along Van Winkle.
Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if we could have the applicant come forward. Hello.
Hello, my name is Adam Hughes. My business address is 338 East South Temple, Suite B in Salt Lake.
Great. Is there any information you'd like to give the commission about these changes, mapping amendments?
Yeah, I think there's some limitations just in terms of how your code is written, in terms of being able to, provide a balanced site and the densities that we're trying to achieve on the site by having a lower density buffering between our development and the single-family homes that are to the west. Our intent with the rezone for the RM25 of the R18 existing zone is to actually transfer the density, a vast majority of that density, through a lot consolidation over the remaining balance of the site. Originally, I think we had 12 units planned for that R18, but based on some public comment and some comments from the neighbors, we've reduced that unit count to 9, but our intent is to only have 9 units in that R18 property, with the remaining 69 units on the GO piece. With that being said, we did conduct some community outreach beginning in June, where we went and canvassed some of the adjacent neighborhoods to get some input into our redevelopment plans. And I think there were some concerns that were raised by not only the community members, but also some within staff and leadership that what the community did not want to see was more rental product. And so they were concerned about not being able to provide additional homeownership opportunities and something that was more compatible with the single family that was in the area, as well as preserving some of the mature trees on the site, and also what the traffic impact would be. And so, based on that feedback, we have committed and intend to do a for sale product here. That would be 77 for sale townhome units. We've reduced some of our unit densities to preserve some of the mature trees on the site, as well as working with the city on traffic calming measures and traffic controls to ensure that that curve is, and the traffic along that curve is adequately managed.
And since these are zone map amendments and general plan amendments, and we're not considering a project, I'm just wondering if you could talk us through the thought process of going from a previous application where you were at RM15 to now jump up quite a bit in density to go to RM25. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It really comes down to project economics in terms of being able to have the densities that are required in a for sale component. We would need to have some additional density associated with that component. And that combined with where interest rates are, construction costs, really the only levers that we have to pull as a developer are our units to achieve the economics that are required for the investment.
So not saying that it's exactly related, but doing rental units, you maybe could have made a lower density in your other plan was to work. But now, because that didn't go forward, you're trying to recoup those costs while meeting some of the neighborhood requirements of hopefully for sale units.
Yeah, I mean, I think just with where the market has gone over the last 2 years, for rental products probably wouldn't work under RM15, even if we were to try to do a for rent product here. It would have to be at an increased density above RM15. But the RM25 and the density that we're planning for the site we'd love to have more density on the site for more favorable economics, but the topography constraints and some of the concerns that the neighbors had, we reduced the unit count.
Can you say that one more time? So why couldn't you build for sale condos or townhomes on RM15?
So when we applied previously, it was 2 years ago. So that was a much different interest rate environment. So our borrowing costs have gone up significantly since that time, and construction costs and inflation have also increased. So our cost to build a project have also increased as well. The only way that you can make a project work when you see an increase in costs is to add additional units to it. And so an RM15 project is just not feasible on this site, considering our land basis and where construction costs and interest rates are.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
I still want to know more. Does that mean, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I just wonder if it cuts into your profit margin or makes for zero profit.
Well, and I just think it's so interesting that the city council denied a lower density, and now we're 2 years later, and the only way to get this site viable is to request higher density. So it's an interesting situation that we're in. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I just have one question. So this document right here, I just was looking at I think something's cut off here. Was there 9 respondents, or do you know how many respondents there were to the survey?
I don't recall.
Okay. That's all, thanks.
And for clarification, what area are we rezoning that slither that was in question to the,
Yeah,
what is it,
both
east
of them
the single-family home?
Yeah, both
All
of
the
them
same.
highlighted, that are in the like neon bluish color.
Oh, so
are both being
along Van
proposed.
Winkle and that big piece, but not that slither next to the single-family home?
No,
That-
that is included.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and then the blue piece. Yep.
I think, yeah, that maybe in a previous application, they talked about maybe trying to do something
Well, that-
different, but I think it's all the same.
Well, and, I was asking because the applicant was talking about that one R18 area along the residence, he's going to reduce to
Right,
9.
and, yeah.
So I was wondering if he was,
I think that's the feedback that they've got, is to maybe be lower density there, but they would have to make up for it by higher density in the other,
Correct.
in another part.
so today we're only zoning the higher density area or the whole piece of property?
Well, we're zoning it as a whole, but there, maybe when a project comes forward, where they put those units would maybe be different, but it would all be meeting the density requirements of the site as a whole. Am I understanding that right? Okay. Okay,
So,
any other questions?
yeah, so I'm not too happy about the higher density. So I want to have a lot of thoughts to say. I completely support the mix or the different housing options in the area and the need for them. I support this project. It looks like a great project. It's in the right area. It should be here. And it looks like the products you're suggesting are going to be great products. I'm just concerned about us rezoning this to a higher density when across the street in the Royal area, years ago, that was one of our first applicants that brought to our attention that that new zone needed some tweaking. It actually was one of the applicants that made us put a moratorium on that zoning and relook at the zoning and develop the east-west of the MCCD zone and the village mixed-use areas. And why that is because the density in that area was too high for what that area was, but our zoning allowed for it, and so we passed it. So that's actually higher density than we would prefer for the Kmart parking lot area in the Royce area. And then the density below this area is RM10, yes. Then you go down 4800 South, and we have rezoned along that area for RM10 as a buffer from the R18 for the Murray Center in MCCD zone. So I don't know why we would increase this any higher. I think RM10 would have made sense. I understand the community council vetoed it. That's what put us in this situation. But the RM10, RM15 would fit what we're doing in the area for density. So I don't understand why we would be excited about doing RM25.
Yeah, maybe that's not a question for the applicant, but just a comment.
Yeah, I mean, the applicant wants to make money. That's all applicants, I know. But I just,
Just to address those issues, I think when you just look at the building typologies here and the type of product that you're comparing it to, you've got garden-style apartments, right? Surface parked, open space. I think the product that we're going to be bringing, which would be a townhome product, a for-sale townhome product with tuck-under parking, is going to have a feel that it's not as dense as some of these other products that you're pointing to and making the comparison to. I'd invite you to look at some of our townhome projects up in Ogden, along the Ogden River. I think they're phenomenal projects. I think going through and experiencing that type of environment that we've created and what the vision is here would allow you to have some optics into what we're contemplating. I think the density is a little misleading because the RM25 is the maximum density allowed under the zoning. But you have to meet certain requirements in order to get additional bonus densities in order to reach that. And, you know, we're only, at a maximum, it would be 77 units across 4 acres. And again, we're trying to create lower density where it makes sense to create more of a buffer and a natural transition from lower density single family up to a more dense townhome product. But I think just in terms of contextualizing a neighborhood and having different product types at different price points and demographics, it's natural to have a mix of housing type and housing stock, particularly with the attainable housing crisis that we're facing. There are a lot of first-time home buyers that can't buy a single-family detached home because they're too expensive. A townhome product allows a target, demographic target, that's a much more attainable price point.
I support townhomes there. I support your project, I support your company. I think it's all ideal. I just don't think the density is appropriate.
Sorry, I might disagree again. Is that okay? No, I just a comment. I think, you know, the business economics make sense. I think the townhomes, I think there's compromise that was made here. I think the location in terms of Van Winkle and 48 South, if we're going to put higher density somewhere, it makes a bit of sense to go there. It's variation. I think a lot of it makes sense. You know, nobody wants, again, higher density in their backyard. But like, people need to live somewhere, and I think this is actually a pretty good location for higher density.
I don't like arguing, and I really respect you, Michael, but I have to say, though, I've been saying for how many years? 8 years on the commission, yes, I understand why we need higher density. Yes, I know why we need higher density in this area. That's why I voted yes for Royce, and I understand why we needed MCCD zone, and I understand why we've crept into the R18 all along from downtown, and that's all density we're being okay with. I understand that, but why don't we ever stop? Why don't we ever say no? This should be, according to what we've done everywhere else, RM10, RM15. And so just say, okay, it should be high density because that's a high density area. At some point, it's ridiculous. At some point, we need to slow our flow. We haven't filled the Royce. It hasn't finished its last building. And so we haven't felt the effects of that density. We haven't built downtown, which will be dense. It will be 500 living residentials throughout there. We haven't built the NOAA or the stacks. It's, at some point, we just need to stick to our beliefs, and that if it follows the rest of the area, RM10 and RM15 would be appropriate. But I also understand we're arguing within ourselves because the city council denied that, so.
So thank you to the applicant for coming up.
Thank you.
I will now open the public meeting portion of this item.
Good evening. My name's Cindy Polson, and I have lived in Murray for 53 years. I grew up on Laura Drive, which, if you could see that on 48, it's just around the curb. It's a little dead-end street with a church that stands there. I went to Parkside Elementary School. I went to Hillcrest Junior High, and I graduated from Murray High School. What you can't see from this map, people have talked about mature trees. These trees were big when my parents moved in, and I was 7 years old. And there is a creek that runs by there, Big Cottonwood Creek, and it cuts under Van Winkle Expressway. There's a lot of ducks and wildlife that live in those mature trees. I don't know how they made their way, but that's their habitat. Councilwoman, you mentioned the Royce. And this area, we have huge pressures from traffic. I want to make a note. I'm probably I'm a little disjointed. I am passionate about being here, and I'm here for my mom and dad, Jacqueline and William Stonebreaker. I'm here for my neighbors who didn't show up tonight, but Carol and Bill, I don't remember his name, but Carol Dahl and her husband, and the guy on the corner, Ken Overby. You know, I went to that bus stop and took the bus there. There's a little bus stop that kids get on right at the top of that hill. It's just the high density. The Murray City Council voted against this. It's not appropriate. I understand everyone's got to make a living, but this is not the right project given the pressure on the roads and the traffic. Little 4800 South can't accommodate this many people. And you know, I invite you to come down and look at what we're talking about. Take a trip down there and see what is going to be completely, totally changed forever. And I did send a comment. I sent an email, and I was not contacted in the canvassing, and my email details that. So hopefully you received that comment. I just don't think that this transformation of our residential neighborhood is appropriate. And this council should stick with what the other council people decided to do. And I really beg you to go down and visit this place.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
All right, I'm Rob Benedict. I live at 4797 Alicia Parkway. That's a tough act to follow. There is a lot of motion. And then I feel like I'm on Shark Tank a little bit here as well. So I'm just a little bit nervous, so I'm just gonna read from here. So I'm Rob Benedict. I live in the middle house next to the single-family property that we're talking about. Zach, I don't know if you can bring up the topographical map with the trees and everything that she was talking about. So it's the square on the left there. So I was really surprised to read staff's justification for changing the single-family property to multifamily. And I'm just going to talk about the single-family property. I'm not going to talk about Spring Pines. Zach, here was your quote, and it's, "Staff supports the proposed zone map amendments, noting that the potential development into a multifamily project would help stabilize the adjacent single-family neighborhood." So I live in this single-family neighborhood. I'm the middle house over there. And I can assure you it's very stable. And in fact, changing the zone to multifamily will have the effect of destabilizing the neighborhood, the exact opposite of what you want. High-density complex next door will bring additional noise. It'll reduce the neighborhood's privacy and generally bring all the issues that come with high-density living. So I don't know anybody in the neighborhood who's asking to build a high-density complex next door to stabilize the neighborhood, right? So I think the premise of staff is absolutely incorrect. Then in addition, this is for Lotus, there's a retaining wall between our house and then down below. So I'm concerned that digging the foundations 25 feet from the retaining wall may damage our foundations. So I think that changing the zoning from single family to high density will stabilize the neighborhood both figuratively and possibly literally from digging out the land. So I'm being a bit flippant with my literal and figurative phrasing, but I do want Lotus to be aware of the concerns around the retaining wall and ask that you would take any precautions to make sure it doesn't damage our foundations. And I also want to commend Lotus for their outreach that they've done. Jake Bird in particular has been awesome. He's been responsive and helpful throughout this whole process. And just for everybody's knowledge, Lotus has said that they will replace the fence. There's an old fence between the properties, and also position the air conditioning units to minimize noise levels, which I really appreciate. So thank you for that. And then the other issue I'd like to address is that there's about the application. So in the application, there's not a single word in there, and maybe the city council can, or city legal can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not a single word in the application to justify changing the single-family designation. So everything in there discusses Spring Pines. So the question to the council and maybe to legal is there a requirement that the application support the request? And there's nothing in the application that supports the request. Lisa, how many times have you mentioned splitting hairs today? Well, I counted 3 or 4. But there's no splitting hairs here, right? I know the staff recommendation is based on a faulty premise, and there's no justification from Lotus for changing the single-family designation. So I'm sympathetic to Lotus. They're in a tough position, and what I would like to see happen is build the 66 homes over where the existing Spring Pines is, and then leave this single-family designation that's been there for 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay. Were there any emails or?
So the one email that we did have was from Cindy Paulson, and it's typical that if they come and
Okay.
speak, we don't
Then that
read
counts as their public
Yeah.
comment. Okay, great. So seeing no further comments, I will close the public comment portion. I don't know if the applicant, I do know that the creek got brought up, and we have some info about your plans with the creek. I don't know if you want to address that.
So in terms of the creek, we want to make sure that the development respects the natural habitat that's there and that we preserve the natural environment. Again, I'll point to our projects up in Ogden and how congruent they are with that natural environment. We'd love to preserve those mature trees as well, but your zoning code doesn't allow us to do that. I mean, we need additional density on this side of the project. The only way we do that is to rezone this so we can transfer the density over. So we're kind of stuck, you're kind of stuck, we're trying to find a solution here. We've tried to make as much accommodation as we can, but the only real path forward for us is to get the rezone on that R18 and move the density over. You don't have anything else in your zoning code that would allow us to achieve the densities that we would need on the balance of the site and preserve those trees.
Thank you.
Chair, can we take a 2-minute recess?
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll take a 2-minute recess and then come back for discussion on this item. Okay, thank you for bearing with us for that quick recess. All right, so we will bring this back for discussion among the council. Yes, do you have a question?
I do. Can we clarify the difference between the existing zoning
Mm-hmm.
and the proposed change? And define more specifically what that is for some of us that may not be quite.
Right, yeah, so,
So, I guess and I'll try to kind of tease out what so the property right here is R18, which is a single family, 8,000 square foot typical, dwelling property. This one, which is included in the application. This one next door is the general office zone, which is GO. Yep, and those are the two properties. So what they're looking for, so, combined, so what the request is for the RM25. That allows for a density of 22 units per acre. So based on the 3.93 acres, total,
77, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the,
that's 86 total, units. I was like 77, wait, I had
That's
to
what he's
like
requesting.
try it 3 times, make sure I wasn't crazy. Up to 86 units. And I believe they're seeking 7, I don't remember exactly how many they're seeking to build. But again, that's not,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
that's
don't know
not
if we
something we
know
can
'cause-
consider
Yeah,
Right.
as part of that. But up to 86 units could be located on there. And then, so this piece right here is, I believe, exactly 1 acre, or very close to it. Can you give me a nod? Is it 1 acre? Yeah, okay. So if we go off the 2.92 times 22, that's 64, just for the GO zone. And so that's kind of why they're here looking at both of them.
okay,
Does that kind of answer it? Okay.
thank you.
Madam Chair, or Mr. Smallwood, can I make a comment in response to the comments that were made by the public? A resident was talking about the comment in the packet about this project would help stabilize the neighborhood, and I think it makes a comment also about encouraging and the area to redevelop or invest in the area. When I read it, it kind of made me pause too. I was like, because I know that that area is being reinvested in between Van Winkle and State Street. $6 million+ homes have been built, and neighbors have remodeled and rebuilt houses all throughout there. There's a couple you can point to. But I understand, though, that what that statement is meaning is if this area has residential in it, that's what this project is suggesting, it would help stabilize residential. And if it stays GO, it could become office buildings, and that would not be stabilizing to the residential if it was industrial something. So that's what it's meaning, so.
Exactly, and yeah, that's the point that I was making in there, is that the applicant has stated that the repair of the office buildings is cost prohibitive. And what happens is when things start to deteriorate to a level, you start to invite, especially along creeks, you see an increase of people experiencing homelessness around those areas. And when and I've said this so many times in meetings, but like eyes on the street, eyes in the neighborhood. And if there's not eyes looking around and engaging in an area, it invites not great or legal things happening on those properties. So by reinvesting in that, it can stabilize that area and make it so that it's an active, thriving area instead of deteriorating and becoming more and more vacant.
That's exactly why I'm jittery on this too, because I do not want to deny a project that's a good project. We need these townhomes here. We need residential to stay here. They've talked about wanting to preserve the waterway as an amenity. It's a good project that needs to stay here. If we deny it, it could become an industrial park. Maybe exaggeration, but point made. On the other hand, I hate approving such high density. And I guess I want to say why I keep saying that is because we're approving a zone change, we're not approving a project. So after we change we never try not to talk about the project and a zone change, because we can approve this zone change tonight and it becomes something crazy different tomorrow. So that's why I keep focusing on the density, even though I love the project. I'm talking about the density. So, okay.
I think it's important for the commission to remember how many projects we've been presented, approved, and then they never happen. And so I'm agreeing with you, Lisa, that, I mean, this project may be great, may be awesome, but 1 minute after we rezone this, they could sell the property to somebody else, their company could go under, they could just change their mind and build, whatever they wanted under the new zone, RM25, which could be, all sorts of stuff. So I think that's why we have to look at the project, or not look at the project at all. Because the chances of it happening, I don't know what they are, but they're not 100%. I also think that I understand that we have to have zones in our city so that they can be developed. But I just want to state, my opinion is it is not our responsibility to make sure that a developer can make money on his project, and if he can't, then we should rezone it. There you go.
I mean, I agree with that, and I think that, I'll just come out and say, this is why I'm really frustrated with the city council. Because here we are 2 years later, and the economics have changed, and the density now that they're requesting has changed. And I just wonder if it was an RM15 project 2 years ago, and we were 2 years in, what this property would look like. I don't think we need to change densities to make a developer, to make their project viable. But I also think that if they're allowed to request whatever density they want, and if that's how the density that they need to try and make their project viable, then they can request whatever density they need. So I do feel like Lisa has stated, the RM15 felt much more appropriate for this area, and felt much more cohesive with the surrounding. And I'm having a hard time getting to such a big jump to RM25. So I don't know how to reconcile what was requested and what's being requested now.
I think if there was a way that you could buffer the residential and guarantee that, I think that would make me feel better. I just don't think there's a way to do that.
There isn't, right? The whole property is either rezoned
Well, is it
or not rezoned.
Is it currently two parcels or is it one?
It is two, but I think for them to get the density, they all need it to all be, they need the acreage, which is why they're requesting this density.
Zach, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If the commission, let's say we deny this, or we recommend not approving a zone change to the city council, can they withdraw their application, or does it have to go to the city council?
They can withdraw it before.
Okay.
But my concern about doing that is that now do these buildings deteriorate to the point that they are unusable, and now we have a vacant property on the corner that is undevelopable because the market doesn't support the way that this could be redeveloped. I feel really like we are stuck.
Or equally bad, it stays GO and it is developable bull, you can put money into it and develop something, but then it will be industrial.
Well, it wouldn't be industrial. I mean, they could develop a GO thing right there, but I mean,
Office
does it,
Office.
does the market make that possible? Maybe not. It probably sits empty.
I didn't say that right, but what's allowed in the GO zone? It could be large office buildings, tall office buildings,
Yes.
other things that we are less excited about.
As it is currently zoned, how tall could a GO building be?
So it's up to, so the 30 feet
40 feet.
when located within 100 feet of a residential zone, and then it can increase in 1 foot in height for every 4 foot of setback. So I haven't measured that out
Right.
specifically.
But what it's
not
currently
very
zoned
high.
as, yeah, would potentially have a way bigger impact than adding housing, right? Like big GO offices during the day can, it depending on what it is, you know,
Yeah,
as it already is zoned, right?
it does allow for like doctor's offices and things like that as well.
I mean, which could be argued has been allowed there currently and it hasn't had a negative impact. Why didn't this pass when it was RM 15?
Ask your council people.
They listen to this, right? I made enemies tonight.
Not necessarily.
No.
They read the minutes typically.
I just appreciate the discussion. I mean, I see both sides now. Helpful for me to see that. I think it really is it's a hard choice because I see both sides.
And the other part of this is that we're only giving a recommendation to the city council. Last time we gave them a recommendation, they turned it down. So we're not the final authority on this.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think if this was RM15, I'd probably be all on board, but
I mean, that, I feel really confident, that's why I voted it that way last time. I voted in favor because that seemed very feasible. And without looking at a project, RM 25 on this spot feels, I don't know, it feels a lot different to me. I don't know why.
Does to me too.
Well, is there further discussion or is there a motion?
I mean, if we read this as it is and we deny it, then we would have to vote again. Correct, Zach? We would, if I read that exactly as it's worded, everybody says no, we didn't pass anything, and we would have to redo this as a denial, correct?
But we could forward a denial to the city council instead of an approval, just because it says approval on this
Yeah,
recommendation.
that's what I'm getting at. I mean, I get the feeling that we may, I mean, I don't know what everybody's gonna vote, but I think that I would be okay doing a recommendation to not approve the zone change.
But I feel like it's so hard because how do you have like the caveat of like,
Well, we're playing Russian roulette because.
I know,
I feel
and
like,
I don't feel comfortable sending them a denial actually to the city council because it's not, I don't know, how do I like say it? It's not that
I
I'm
guarantee that we'll.
opposed to RM here. I don't know,
Yes, I
does
understand.
that make sense what I'm
Yes.
saying? I don't know how to, I don't want to send them be like, oh yeah, I don't support multifamily in this area because I do. I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping that this, I'm thinking, in a perfect world, I could send a denial and tell them it's because I 100% support this project. We need townhomes and this is a good spot for it. The density's silly. And they hear us and then they go back and ask for another resubmit for RM 15 and everybody accepts it. But there is the chance that the developer will walk away.
Yeah.
There is the chance they decide to do something else that we're not excited about. I don't know.
Is RM15 considered medium density?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'm reading it a lot yesterday and today. And I just think RM 15 is right, and we've done the Royce, We've done, there's the apartments, we've done all the. I mean, and what's there could stay there and become worse. I don't know. It'll deteriorate and become worse.
So again, we're not the final vote, though.
Right, we're just a recommending
We're just
body.
recommending.
Yeah.
I mean, they could sell someone else, and someone else comes in and develops RM15, but it's not as nice and doesn't take into the creek into an amendment.
I do, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do think the risk is if it gets denied and another developer comes in and also says, RM25 is the only way to make it work, and we're not going to have a project that is for sale, there's no guarantees, I guess, is the.
Right. The economics are gonna dictate that
Right,
no matter
and
what we
exactly.
decide with respect to the zoning.
And it might have sounded catty when I said it earlier, but that's exactly why I was asking. I'd like to maybe give us the numbers. Is it zero profit margin or is it less profit margin?
But it
Therefore,
doesn't
someone-
matter, the zone,
We can't do that because there's no project in its zone.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah.
But that would tell us something about the next person that comes in. They might be like, look, this is what they'll accept and we'll do it.
I
Or,
mean, I
no.
would guess that the next person comes in and says, I need the same zoning, and I maybe am not willing to do for sale product, because I want a different profit margin. I mean, we can't predict the future.
I mean, the property could sit as it is too, for another decade.
Yeah, which would not be great
No,
either.
I know, I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be redeveloped. It could sit, it could just be old and run down and.
And attract. Yeah. I mean.
Okay.
And that's true. They could do what they did Marsh Family Farm, come in and put in 6 houses that are over $1.2 million each and make a profit after it sits for 5 years.
I think we're kicking the can right now, just talking about the same thing. So if it's okay, I'm gonna try to make a motion. I'm gonna do the zoning map motion first. Can I do that?
No, it
You
needs
have
to be
to
the
change the general
needs
plan
to be the general
first,
plan
right?
first.
Yeah.
It needs to be the general plan?
Because it wouldn't be coherent with the general plan. if
That's
we do
okay.
it.
We can change the zone without conforming to the general plan, could we not?
No,
We cannot by code?
It's the future land
that,
use.
so we like to keep those,
I know we like to, but I'm saying.
and they
that
should be.
By code, we can change a zoning map even though it doesn't match the general plan. But it
It's
doesn't matter. I'll do the
very-
general plan first.
Okay.
I am going to make a motion that the planning commission forward a recommendation to the city council to deny the request to amend the future land use map, redesignating the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South, from low-density residential and office to high-density residential.
I'm going to second that motion.
Okay. Let's make sure I do this right. I have a motion by Commissioner Pearson and a second by Commissioner Milkovich to forward a recommendation of denial to the city council for the requested amendment to the future land use map, redesignating the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South, from low-density residential and office to high-density residential. Is there discussion on that motion?
I just want to clarify, just make sure I was
Did I say
clear.
it wrong?
No, I think you
Oh.
did. We're just, my motion was that we're not recommending they approve this. Right?
We're
That's what I said.
forwarding a recommendation of denial,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that, did I not say that?
No, you did. You said it right. I just wanted to make sure
I-
everybody understood it. Because when we say, if someone says yes to this, that means we're saying yes to denying it.
We're saying yes to no.
Yeah,
Right.
yay
Yeah.
for motions.
Thank you for clarifying. How do we vote? Okay, call
Ready?
for vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pearson.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Haristo.
No,
Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
And Chair Patterson.
No. Okay, motion passes. So do we have to do a denial for the zone map? Okay, so,
Or at least a recommendation. That would be really silly to vote for.
right,
It-
so
but that doesn't
that
matter.
automatically means, right?
But it would, we do need to do.
Okay, you want me to do that? I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that the planning commission forward a recommendation of denial to the city council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South from R18, low-density, single-family, and GO, general office, to RM25, multiple-family, high-density residential, as described in the staff report.
I have a motion by Commissioner Pearson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So I have a motion by Commissioner Pearson and a second by Commissioner Malkovich to forward a recommendation of denial to the city council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South from R18 Low Density Single Family and GO General Office to RM 25 Multifamily High Density Residential as described in the staff report. Is there discussion on that motion? Okay, we can call for a vote.
Okay, Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Haristo,
No.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
and Chair Patterson.
No. All right. Well, I guess we'll see what the city council says. Thank you for coming and being part of our meeting this evening. Is there any further business? you
I'd
have
like
for
to
the commission?
make
Oh.
comment that this is a recommendation to the city council, so they can say yay or nay to whatever we recommend to them, so they could still approve it.
Yeah, I mean, they are the decision maker in this situation, so we encourage you to attend your city council meeting. Thank you for that comment. Any further business?
Yes, there is. So in our agenda item number 4, there, Zach made a really big boo-boo. And we did receive an email for, as a comment that I printed out that I misread as a Lotus comment. So after consulting with the attorney's office, it is part of the record. And I will email you guys a copy of it. Largely, it covers the exact same things that were addressed in the public hearing. There was no new information provided as part of that, but I do want to deeply apologize for that. I misread it. And yeah, that's totally my bad, but it is part of the record. They got it in on time. And so it will be part of the official record, and I will send it to you guys probably before I leave this evening. So I wanted to make you guys aware of that.
I also would like to comment, I really appreciate the discussion tonight. I wish the applicant had listened to this discussion, or not the applicant, the residents interested in the applicant item. To know we discuss.
And maybe wouldn't have changed their minds. Okay, is there any other further business?
I don't think so. The next planning commission should be much lighter. I think we only have 2 items on it right now, so pretty basic. So hopefully I won't keep you till 9 o'clock.
Okay, is there,
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 9:01 PM.
is there a second?
Second.
So moved. Meeting adjourned.